Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're just going to take a couple minutes and let everyone join in and get settled. I just wanted to let you know that we're using the webinar feature tonight. So that means you won't be able to see or hear each other, but you'll be able to interact with the panel by writing in your questions to the Q&A box on the bottom of the screen. And we will answer them at the end of the presentation. So in just a couple minutes, we'll get started with Deb Armstrong, the president of the Friends of the Cos Cob Library. Okay, good evening, everyone. It looks like most of you have joined us now. So thank you for coming. We'll be using the webinar feature tonight, so that means you won't be able to see or hear each other, but you'll be able to interact with the panel by writing your questions into the question and answer box at the bottom of your screen. We'll answer those questions at the end of the presentation. So to get started, we have an introduction from Deb Armstrong, the president of the Friends of the Cos Cob Library.
Laura, thank you. And thank you everybody who joined us. We're delighted that you took time out of your evening to be with us. This is very, a very important meeting, and we have some very important people I want to introduce you to. First, let me introduce you to Michael Freitag. Michael is a trustee at Greenwich Library, and as they say in the State Department, he's been attached to the Cos Cob Library, and we are delighted to have him on our board. Probably the most important person in this meeting is Michael Tribe. Michael is the architect at Peter Gisolfi Associates, and many of you know his work from the main library and the Reimagine project. Laura already introduced herself. Laura Matthews, all of you know, she's our branch manager. And we also have with us tonight another trustee, Jill Cobbs. Jill is the co-chair of Building and Grounds. It should be really apparent why Jill has joined us tonight. This definitely has to do with Building and Grounds. We also have our library director, Barbara Ormerat-Glenn, and our deputy director, Joe Williams. So that is the group that you see of panelists. I want to start the meeting just with a little framing of the topic for tonight. Most of you know that the library was built in 1999, so we're 23 years old, and you also know that the library is very busy and it's full of people all the time. So clearly the notion of clean up, fix up, update, etc., a refurbishment is we're due. And we think that the opportunity to rethink some of the space, you're going to hear about that tonight. Some of this is going to seem rather modest, but think about 23 years ago, how people used space, and some of the new thinking now and the change in technology. There are new ways to think about space. So we're going to be discussing that tonight. We are happy you could be here. And as Laura said, we're going to be answering your questions. So the format will allow you to submit your questions as you hear the reports being made. When the report is completed, your questions, we'll be answering those. The panelists will answer those questions for you. All of you know Cos Cob has grown a lot in the last 23 years. We have lots of new people. We think that this opportunity to rethink some of our space and reuse some of our space it's a great one. So I'm going to turn the meeting over now to Michael Freitag. Again, Michael is a trustee who is working with the Cos Cob Library. So over to you, Michael.
Thanks, Deb. Yeah, it's truly been an honor to be attached to you and your fellow board members of the Friends of Cos Cob Library. I am a Cos Cob resident too, and I live up on Bible Street, and certainly know the branch well. I've been a trustee of the library on and off now for around 9 years, and the sense of we need to do something at Cos Cob has been a subject at the board for pretty much my whole time on the board. And I think in recent years in particular, there has been a very clear and universal recognition that this was the right time to move forward. And fortunately, we have lessons learned, experiences gained from the Reimagine activity at the main branch, including a very successful interaction with Michael Tribe and his colleagues, and you'll hear more from Michael in a minute, as well as I think just a successful project overall in terms of coming in on budget, coming in as planned, maybe a little faster thanks to COVID, making things a little easier to close parts of the library and so forth. But there were a lot of good learnings from that experience, and I know Jill can speak to that when we get to the Q&A. But also, I think we learned as trustees, why this, the important question here, which is why do this, right? What are the benefits of engaging in a Reimagine activity such as we did at the main branch, and now what we're proposing for Cos Cob? And it isn't simply about freshening things up, although that's important, but it is really reimagining how the spaces are used, addressing the needs of the community, which have certainly evolved over time. And this does reflect learnings, both, again, from the main branch, but in discussions with Laura and her staff, initial conversations now with the Friends. And the purpose of this meeting is truly to learn from all of you who are participating. We are by no means presenting you with a done deal. This is a plan that we feel good about and work has gone into, but we are at the stage of gathering community input. And the only other point I will make, I don't want to spend too much time on this, is it is a somewhat modest plan. I know there are those of you who believe and have believed from day one that the community needed a bigger library, and I was in town when it was built, and I happily contributed a brick with my family to the library, and I remember some of the issues at the time in terms of planning and zoning and parking restrictions and so forth. A lot of those issues remain, and so what we're trying to do with this project is, I would say, a pragmatic and modest approach to addressing the needs of the community with a project we think can be done relatively quickly and relatively, I don't want to say inexpensively, but within a budget that we can all manage. There will not be a need for a capital campaign between the resources of the library, and part of this would be funded by the capital improvement portion of the town budget that the library participates in, year in, year out. Other than those two sources of funding, this would be, there would be no need for additional capital campaign, although of course community support is always welcome, and there might be naming opportunities and ways for the community to feel a sense of ownership and participation in this project. I think those are the main points I wanted to cover, but really I know you're all here to hear from Michael Tribe and understand what is being proposed. So with that, I will hand it over to Michael Tribe.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Deborah. I'm going to shift into a PowerPoint so that I can share some images with you. Okay, can you see that image? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so what we've done is we've prepared a schematic set of drawings that identifies scope. So we've gone through this whole scope issue. I'm going to move this. This came into here. There we go. All right, I had something covering my screen. And so one of the issues is how do we put an addition, enhance the program room so it's large enough to hold larger groups and not impact the parking. The biggest issue here is how do we maintain the same number of parking spaces. So you'll see that I think it's moving. Sorry, I'm trying to, oh, there we go. You should just focus on these three areas where I put the circles. One is the area where the program room is changing. Another is a change to the access to the parking. We're going to eliminate this area and keep the double entry and leaving space over here, and also a potential pergola in that location. So here's how we change that. We eliminate that driveway entrance over here. We provide 2 additional handicap parking spaces with a curb cut close to the ramp and brings you into the building. You can see the expanded meeting room in here and the new pergola with a path that leads to that pergola in this area. So those are the kind of the big moves in terms of the overall site changes. Of course, here is the firehouse, and this is the parking area for the firehouse. So this is kind of how we represent this, so we can understand what the parts and pieces are. It's a demolition set of drawings showing what's being removed in terms of the areas here in the parking. This ramp in the back that we won't need anymore, and two trees that are coming out in this area. And I have a photograph. These trees aren't large, but the ability for the library to have an exterior space, terrace, where you can have outdoor events, program, a variety of uses for that space. So here's now the plan of what it would turn into. And again, changes to the parking, the expansion, and also there's a series of interior changes that I'll show you in a second, and the access to the pergola. This is a photograph from the parking lot looking at that area. This is the wall of the community room where this wall would be removed and we would expand the space. Behind this brick wall is where the ramp is. So that wall would come down, that ramp would be removed, and this area would be modified. So again, this is the plan as it currently is, and you can see the count of parking 7 all the way through 18. And then when we go to the next image, we still have the 18 parking spaces, including the 2 handicap spots. So we are complying in terms of with the town requirements, and we are able to expand the meeting room to a much larger space. In addition to this pergola in the back, there's a fence back here, a little storage shed, things that the library needs for long-term storage. This is just a demolition drawing. It's just certain cabinets and certain pieces of millwork that are being removed. In particular, you'll see the adult stacks in the back area here. That's the stacks, and we're talking now about the area right in the back corner over here. And the reason is this: if we can remove the 2 stacks in the back, you can create a space for the young adults. This has a lot of notes on it, so I'm just going to go to the furniture plan. It's a little cleaner. But you can see here the table is set up for the young adults, and everything in gray is something that's new. It's changed. So these are all additional shelving and bookcases because we removed those freestanding bookcases to put part of the collection for the young adults in that location. Again, a bench here, some bookcases, and another kind of study desk in this location. In addition, there's some changes in the adults reading area, also by reducing the height of the stacks and removing some of the stacks, creating a larger open space. That's currently what it looks like. This is the space we're talking about. And what's being proposed is a series of tables, study tables that will have power and light and similar to what was done in the main library. And then there's also some comfortable seating by the windows and some bookcases in the corner, a place to put the printer, the copier, all that kind of stuff is all planned for in this area. In addition, there'll be a few changes to the main desk. Mostly in the back area, making it a lot more efficient in terms of the millwork that would help the operations of the library. An area for flyers to display things, and also a book drop built into the current desk. So here's a photo of the area we're talking about, and the back areas back in here that are going to be modified. In addition to these, the adult area, there are changes also to the children's area. The tiered seating within the tower being rebuilt so that you can put storage and keep some long-term books filed below that. And also kind of opening up the space here in the middle with a computer table and other reading tables and additional bins with some display in here. So that's what's being modified. Over here, here's a photograph kind of looking down this area that's heavily used, but opening it up with those tables. And then again, the tiered seating being modified. And just coming to, to the meeting room, it's going to, a high-tech room with the ability to have screens that are interactive. So you can have these kind of meetings, you can have people presenting from a distance. And what we've done is we've stolen a little room from the hallway and turned it into additional storage for the meeting room. So this is now a closet instead of being a door that goes through to the hallway. And in what we're looking at is to upgrade all the finishes in the bathrooms, upgrade all the finishes in the library, be it the carpets and millwork, lighting, all of those things. And there's a slight modification also to the back office desk to make it more efficient by creating a desk area for the people that are working back there. You'll also notice that here where there used to be a ramp, now there's steps connecting to this door in the meeting room. And the book return kind of stays in the same location, undercover under that roof. That'll be directly accessible from this side. And it could be brought in through the front door. Slight modifications to the vestibule. So here you have the front elevation, the south elevation. The bottom one is how it currently looks. The top one, you can now see the addition in the gray tone coming out to the left. On the bottom left is the opposite side. It's the north side as it currently exists. And then above with the addition coming out. And then on the bottom right is looking from the parking lot, which would be the west side. That's how it currently looks. And this is how it would look like with the addition. You can see we're matching the finishes, the colors, the windows, the roofing. It looked like it was always was there in terms of its materials. We've heard about issues with water dripping, and we've come up with a solution with this ice removal system. We'll put in some gutters to solve that problem. We've noticed that a lot of the insulation in the attic is kind of crumbling. So in the notes, we have information to update the insulation. Same thing with the lighting. This has been a problem for a while. Upgrade the lighting. The path There are some bricks that are damaged and it potentially needs to be reset and replace the ones that are damaged. There was some issue with the light fixtures in the parking lot that seemed to go directly into people's living spaces and the neighbors' living spaces. So we're looking at alternative heads that would just illuminate the parking lot. It wouldn't have, you wouldn't see the bulb, you wouldn't see the source of the light. And then we talked also a little bit about signage. The sign that's in the corner here is this concrete gnomon that's covered by planting. It's very, very hard to see. So if some additional signage could be thought of, this would be the location to kind of advertise where the library is. And that, of course, will have to go through all the planning and approval processes. So that's the presentation, just taking you through kind of the main features of what we've identified in the drawings. We also have some mechanical drawings identifying improvements to the systems so that we can get some, in the future, we can get some estimates and understand potentially what the cost could be. I will.
Michael, I would suggest you put up the slide showing the community room. I know there's a lot of interest in that. I don't think we showed people the exactly percentage increase, the square footage. I know there's a slide that shows that pretty clearly. I hate to do it from memory, but I think it's increasing about 40% in size.
Yeah, I will find that for you. Well, that one's not. I know which one. Here we go. This one is. So I'm going to share the screen again and put that up. So currently the meeting room is, I've got the square footage right here. It's about 480 square feet. And once we finish with the addition, overall size would be 800 square feet. So the maximum occupancy will go from 70 to about 114, 115. So it's a much better size in terms of the programs that you could have in that space.
Thank you.
Sure.
We do have a number of questions in the queue. I don't know, Laura, do you want to be the master of ceremonies?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So let's start at the beginning. Why won't you be applying for a state library construction grant to cover the project cost? Joe, I think you
I can
answer
take that question. Yes, I had been involved at the main renovation and wrote the state grant for that. So I had done the research to see what an application for a state grant would be for the Cos Cob renovation. So I did a preliminary analysis, and I also had contacted the state office to discuss the matter. So as a general point, the awarding of construction grants, they're based on points. There are several criteria which they look at, including the classification of a library. You know, if it's a branch or a central library, the wealth of the area served, the age of the building, the type of construction, and the number in the population served. For each of those areas, they award points, and you have to get a certain number of points before you carry over the threshold, and that's just for qualifications. So when I ran the numbers, we added up the points, and because the library is a branch, it's relatively new, and because what we're doing, and because our municipality, where it is ranked in relative wealth, we don't gain enough points to meet that threshold. So those are the main reasons why we cannot apply for a state grant, is essentially because the branch would not qualify for it.
Thank you, Joe. The next question is, that our community does need a bigger library, but why do we need so many parking spaces if we're close to the big parking lot? Because many of the kids walk to the library.
So I don't know, either Jill or Michael, if you can explain some of the restrictions. I know there's a lot of zoning considerations that come into play here, but I hand it off to you.
Yeah, the only parking that counts is the parking that's on the property. So all the parking that you see south of the building belongs to the municipal fire station. It doesn't belong to the library. The only parking that counts are the parking spaces that are on that west parking space. So there's a count of parking based on occupancy. It depends on how many people you can have in the building. It defines the more people you put in the building, the larger the parking lot needs to be. So we're limited in terms of how big the building can be because of how small that parking lot is. That's the limitation.
And I know, because I know a number of people on this participant list are familiar with these issues. You know, the library has looked at alternative sources of parking and ways around this issue, you know, looked at it numerous times. I don't think there is a belief there is an easy solution to, you know, come up with the land and parking, you know, necessary to get to a different, you know, larger configuration. We're not ruling it out forever, but I think to try to move forward in a timely basis in a practical way, this was the plan that the trustees were comfortable moving forward with.
You would need to acquire more land, just straightforward. And so we're doing it within the regulations and the land we have possible now. That's it.
Will Wi-Fi be available at the pergola? Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we've had a meeting with our tech department, we should be able to extend Wi-Fi out to the pergola.
Yes, and that would be the plan. We will make Wi-Fi available.
Will the librarians be able to visually see the teen area from the registration desk? Will the teen area have natural light? In the teen area, are there any cozy nooks for reading? So we will be able to see the teen area pretty well. It's going to be like where the last stack of nonfiction books were. So it's a pretty easy visual over there. There will be like one nook in that section that's more of like a couch. And then there'll be two like study tables for laptops. We're trying to make the best use of the space, like the most flexible. So one thing we're finding is a lot more people want to come into the library to work in groups or do work or study. And so we want, when the teens are in school, for other people to also be able to use that area. Let's see. The proposed interior setup is great. Can we ask for variance and add bigger community room? Oh, I'm sorry. Also, I didn't answer the question about the natural light. But Michael, I don't believe there'll be any natural light in that area specifically.
No, it's too far away from the windows. You do need some electric light there. Yeah.
The proposed interior setup is great. Can we ask for variance and add bigger community room to gain more parking spaces? Do you feel that this was answered previously? Or did anyone want to elaborate on that?
Well, I think on the specific question of a variance, you know, the library has been well advised over many years, you know, and fortunately have had a number of trustees who have an expertise in this area, such as Tom Hegney and others. And I think the feeling was a variance to, you know, have a bigger space and fewer parking spots is highly unlikely to pass muster. I think, again, those who remember the first time around, there was a lot of back and forth with planning and zoning over the library as it currently exists. I'm not an expert on all of the various regulations in town, but it's something that has certainly been talked about, looked at very, very closely. And again, I think Jill said it well, that, you know, absent a major actions such as, you know, finding land, which we don't know exists, and the expenditures and all the work that goes into that, this is a plan that we can actually achieve with what currently exists.
Will there be a way for the librarians to turn off the parking lot lighting? Because the person asking the question says there had been a previous time where they were doing an activity outside and the staff was not able to, but I could say that at this time we are able to, and I don't see that changing. So that might have just been a policy issue at that time. You are eliminating what's already very limited space shelves for books, especially for adults using the facility. So, you know, one of the things Michael mentioned is that the stacks will be lowered, but we actually don't use the bottom shelf right now. So we're not losing any shelf space because of the lowering of the stacks. We'll just be moving the shelves down so that we're using the lower shelf, which is commonly used. We are taking out 2 ranges in the back of the building in the adult side, like near the DVDs. That is the majority of the removal. We're not changing a lot of the other stacks. You might see in one place we're changing like one stack into a different type of furniture, but shouldn't be losing shelf space. So we will be decreasing the size of some of our collections where we're seeing a decrease in usage. So those would be like DVDs, audio books, and then we'll be right sizing the other collections. So they might be like adjusting where they are in the building. And some of them are actually probably going to grow a little bit, and others we might trim down a little, but it won't be significant because, like I said, we'll be concentrating on media first, and we're actually gaining stacks in other areas. So there's going to be shelves around the rotunda area, and a couple other shelves we're adding in certain areas.
And Laura, I think Barbara could speak to this, but I mean, to some degree, this is reflecting evolving needs, not just in Cos Cob, but main branch and Byram, that, you know, we've learned over time, there's an increased need for workspaces, people who use library in different ways than they might have 20 years ago. You know, people value the great collections we have in Greenwich. And we have, you know, the advantage of having the main branch, you know, and the ability to do interlibrary, distribution very promptly. But, you know, again, the goal here is to balance evolving needs of the community, and making sure the collection is up to date and weeded and really focused on what people want today, and also providing these other amenities is an important part of the overall effort at all of the library facilities.
Yeah, I mean, we really pride ourselves on being like a browsing collection and providing readers advisory, and we're taking the collection very seriously. We'll do a comprehensive collection development report in the next year, like with our resources management department. So we really want to make sure we get our collections the right size and make sure we have the books in the building that, you know, our community is looking for. So it's not something being taken lightly. And it may appear just by some of the increase in seating that we're losing more collection than it looks like.
I'd make one more point, and that's that our facilities team delivers books from the main library to Cos Cob and back again even more frequently than they used to. And so the materials rotate through the system with greater speed than ever.
Okay, so can you create a vestibule at the side entrance to the community room so people can enter in inclement weather? Michael, do you want to comment on that?
I think we did. I mean, we've been evaluating and working on this building for years now and looking at possibilities. And at one point, we thought that it was important to keep that access to the meeting room separate. But I think the latest thought process is that the library or the sense is that you want everybody coming in through the front door. That whole ramp is covered by the overhang. So I know it's a little further, but we're talking about a few steps. I thought that door really, the two doors in that meeting room are there for code requirements for meeting egress so that people can get out in an emergency. But in terms of the operation of the library, it kind of makes sense that everybody comes in through the front door and you don't have a back door where people are coming in and out of the building.
How long would the renovation take? Would the library need to be closed during renovation? Joe, do you want to comment on that?
I think that it was anticipated 6 months, and we still have to, once we finalize the plans based on the feedback that we get from this meeting, we'd be able to determine about when it would be closed and for how long, and to see if it can be done in phases, or maybe we close the whole thing during the duration. That remains to be seen, but there are plans to provide some level of offsite service and support for the community. But once we understand when the project would start, and right now we're looking at the fall of next year, we'll be able to make a more considerable determination as to where our temporary facility would be, or if we could do a partial occupation.
So the next person was asking that same question, but also what the estimated total cost of a renovation project would be. Joe or Michael, do you want to address that question?
I'm certainly happy from a trustee point of view. I think the budget is still a work in progress, but we're talking in the range of somewhere between $1.5 to $2.5 million, depending on where things net out, and final work with an estimator and other things still to come. But I think that's the kind of budget range that we're talking about. And again, as I mentioned at the outset, between the library's available resources and a certain amount of that that would be expected to be covered under the town CIP process. Not an unusual part of the CIP, but part of the regular CIP process, that it should be fully funded without the need for a capital campaign.
Okay, our next question is from a member of the town sustainability committee, and they're interested in what plan there is to reduce energy. Would you consider putting an EV charger in the parking lot?
So we are, we're very preliminary what we're looking at. But when we looked at the mechanical systems with the engineer, there is a potential to going all electric and less reliant on, or mostly electric and less reliant on fossil fuels. There is the possibility of solar panels, and that needs to be looked at. There's some pretty interesting financing things going on now that it shouldn't be a big impact on the project. And then having an EV parking spot is something that could be achieved, and it just needs to be evaluated. But yeah, all of these things are on the table, and we're looking at all of them and seeing how we can make the building more sustainable, in addition to the lighting changes and all of the interior things that we can do to reduce the energy consumption.
So we have another question about that. We're at about 5,000 square feet, but we should be over 7,000 square feet. Why are we not able to add that additional space? I think Joe and Michael, you've already addressed this question, but do you want to elaborate since it seems to be a common one?
Well, what I would say is, you look at the building and it's hard to see how the footprint could grow because of the site limitations. But then the next thought is, well, could you grow up instead of sideways? What are the limitations to putting up a partial second floor? Well, that still impacts the parking. It still is an issue. The more space you create, the more people are in the building, the larger the parking lot you would need, and that limitation is still there. In addition, the way the building is built, there is no structural support for a second floor. So if you would want to build a partial second floor, you actually have to remove the roof completely because it's a whole series of wood trusses. And you would need a new structure, internal structure to support a floor that then can carry the loads of books and people. So there's a practical, real practical limitation. And by putting a second floor, you're adding sprinklers to the building, all kinds of other code things come in. So it becomes quite expensive to consider that.
Our next person is saying that they see the larger meeting room as the inclusion of a new screen. If they hear correctly, this is to support enhanced video conferencing abilities. This would be an invaluable tool. And the idea is to, get the technology necessary to do more hybrid programs and meetings. So that should be something that we will see with the new technology in that room. We have another question about the bookshelves decreasing. So as I was saying, in the children's room, the bookshelf footprint's not actually changing that much.
Did we lose Laura?
I think she froze. So, but I believe that Laura answered this question before, that the shelving decreases while they are getting lower. We are making use of the shelving on the lower levels. So the net loss to the collection would be negligible, and it's only those materials which aren't heavily used. So I'll go ahead with the next question here. Will the pergola be built on a concrete pad to extend the life of the pergola? Will the pergola have solar lighting? Will there be security cameras monitoring that corner? Well, I'll answer about the cameras, and we are going to be doing a security plan with a security system, and the pergola would be one area where there would be a camera. For the concrete pad, I would ask Michael to elaborate on that.
Yeah, we haven't detailed that yet. We will evaluate the best option. We've done these kind of patios in locations where in some places it makes sense to put it on a drainage system so that you're not increasing the amount of water that's being collected on site. So that's a whole drainage calculation that will tell us which direction we have to go. But for example, Yale University, all of their bluestone walkways and paths, and it's all done on gravel and drainage. It's not on concrete. So there are ways of doing it that is quite permanent. So there are ways of doing it both ways. But I think the drainage calculation is going to let us know which direction to go there.
So now, so the next two questions, I'm going to combine the next two questions, because one is, did anybody ask the neighbors if we can buy more land, followed by Have you asked neighbors recently if their properties are available soon? And then there's a secondary comment about that says, good plan, but won't this proposed project leave Cos Cob Library far short of the state library space standard? So before that we get to the space standard, we can talk about the availability of the neighboring properties. And for that, I defer to board members.
I would say in my roughly 9 years of being a trustee, this subject has come up a number of times. Proposed, ideas have been floated. I don't know that we've ever been aware of a property available, nor necessarily a will from the trustees to move in that direction. I think there's a lot that goes into that consideration and decision making. Again, I think from where we are today, just based on practical considerations of where we are, the thought was, this can help us refurbish the existing facility, get much needed extra space in the meeting room, and move forward on a relatively, fast timetable and with a budget that we think is quite doable. It doesn't preclude other options longer term, as we continue to see where to go from here.
Thanks. And
Yeah,
then there's a
aren't
second.
any-
Oh,
sorry.
sorry.
I
No,
was
go
just
ahead,
going to
Jill.
say, there aren't any houses on the market for sale. So nothing's on the market. Have we knocked on doors? That's a different story, but nothing's on the market.
Then there was a second part of this question that says, won't this proposed project leave Cos Cob Library far short of the state library space standard? So I can respond to this because it was in part of my part of the grant research that we did. So the space standard would apply in this case. It's the recommendations from the state library for municipality for the entire town. And in that case, it applies to a main library, which is the main library at Greenwich, which meets that standard. Cos Cob Library, in this case, is a service of a branch, which has a different standard applied to it. And that's why it would be smaller. So when you talk about the municipality and what you apply to it, you're really looking at Greenwich as the whole, which Cos Cob is a part of. The next question is, we raised $1 million in Cos Cob in 1997. Why not a capital campaign in Cos Cob?
I don't think we're saying, don't do one, but I think we're saying we don't need one for this recommended project. Again, I don't think that's what's driving the decision making here. I don't know. I don't know that it's a question of feeling like we don't have the resources. I just don't think we feel there is an alternate proposal requiring a capital campaign. As Jill has said, it's not as though there's a house available that we're all, we would have bought, but for lack of financial resources. This is an idea I know that's been talked about, again, many times over the years. I'm just not aware of such a plan available to us. So there's no need for a capital campaign. The library feels that it has the resources to fund this project.
But if you want to donate funds, we will gladly accept them. Next question is, will the doors or the walls to the community room be soundproofed? And for that, I would guess that's a material question. So I defer to Michael Tribe.
This one. Yeah, the idea is to make the community room as soundproof as possible. The current door, that sliding door, has its problems and it needs to be reevaluated and rebuilt. So in that analysis, if we can improve on the soundproofing of that large door, we'd definitely be looking at that, yes.
The next question, what time frame are we looking at? So I can respond to that. So as we mentioned before, we expect construction to be about a 6-month process. But to get there, we have to finalize our designs, and then it goes through planning and zoning, most likely wetlands, the building department, as well as the architectural review committee, and all that takes several months to do. So we don't anticipate starting any construction until at least a year from now, being in the fall of 2023. So the next question is, you are taking 10 spaces from the municipal lot. Won't businesses object? Have we asked them? So for the parking reconfiguration, I would ask for more details from Michael.
Yeah. So there is a kind of an additional parking spot that we're putting into the municipal parking lot, because we're eliminating that single driveway that comes into the overall count. So yeah, there is a little bit of a give and take, but it's not, if anything, the municipal lot is getting an additional spot. The overall number is exactly the same. We hope to be able to make that argument to the town.
Yeah, I think let's just be clear to clear up any misunderstanding. We're certainly not taking 10 spaces unless that was a typo. There are 18 dedicated spots for the library existing, and there will be going forward. Is that right, Michael? I'm doing that from memory, but
yeah, there's let me see, 10 is about there's 15 of them, and we didn't count the 5 that were the far west because we weren't changing that area. But there currently there are 15, and in the proposed we have 13, and then the 2 that we gain in the municipal lot. So it's overall we're losing a couple of spots, but on the parking, because we're creating the handicap parking spaces that take more space to create them. But the municipal lot actually gets 2 more, and obviously those 10 parking spaces, there are 9 parking spaces that are close to the library. Typically, people that are coming to the library use those spaces.
Okay, the next question has to do with neighboring property, but I believe we've answered that. So I'm going to move on to the next one. The Cos Cob Library is essentially one room for adults and children with a meeting room area. It can become quite noisy. Will new materials for the walls, ceilings, and floor be chosen with acoustics in mind, so as much sound as possible can be absorbed?
Yes, and the answer is yes. We've already included that as part of the scope in terms of soft ceilings, obviously carpet, as many soft surfaces as possible so that the sounds are contained within the areas. But yes, that's included.
Okay, and then we have a comment here and a question. Thank you for the hard work already put into this upgrade plan. Would it not be possible to better divide the space, like 1, clear and always quiet study and reading zones, 2, kids/games, events are in the meeting room or kids corner, 3, improved technology, better computers, PCs, laptops, printers, more like a business center corner, 4, a comfortable conversation meeting area zone where beverages, non-alcoholic, are permitted. Most of the libraries offer that. Please don't the bike racks. I don't know if they mean move the bike racks or something about the bike racks. They can be, there was a typo there.
yeah, later on he or she says, please don't forget the bicycle racks. Yeah.
Don't forget the bicycle. Okay, so you can't forget the bicycle racks. They can be better placed and should be covered and illuminated. I believe there should be a longer term plan for an additional floor, adult quiet zone, and a real basement for storage. So that's a lot of comments there. Anybody would like to respond to any of that?
I know Laura had to rejoin, but I know this plan reflects a lot of input from Laura and her staff. I don't know, Laura, if you want to jump in, but you know, I know you have a limited space to work with and you're trying to meet, you know, the needs as best you can.
Yeah, I mean, I think the real challenge is the limited space. So anything we do, like any addition we make, we will lose more collection space. You know, that could mean just like putting in any walls to try to kind of partition the building into different areas. So it's hard. We really don't want to lose any more collection space. So our options are limited in the footprint. We tried to make, some semi-private areas, which is what we were doing with that back area for the young adults. But it is true that there's not, and we have like our own little business area, say for printing, and we have a scanner now, but they're not going to be, if we try to partition them off, we'll lose more collection space. And, we weren't comfortable doing that. So this was the best we could do. And we're happy with it. We've gotten a lot of feedback that people like the building the way it is. That's probably been our most common feedback, like the feeling of it. So in a way, if we did start quarantining the areas, like quartering them off like that, we might lose some of that feel. So we did the best we can with the space, and we think people will be happy with that.
And I'll just jump in again from a trustee point of view, recognizing, we're a community system, and I know people in Cos Cob feel very passionately about the branch, but there is the main branch not that far away, and a lot of the effort that went into the Reimagine campaign was specifically to address a lot of these points. I mean, this is actually a great description of many of the features that have been added to the main branch in recent time. There are places for quiet study, beautiful new reading room. There is a great upgraded business center, including conference rooms and phone booths and upgraded technology. There is a much better place to eat and have beverages than used to exist there, and certainly bicycle racks. But again, I know we're talking about Cos Cob, but for those who are looking for those amenities, please, if you haven't visited the main branch, and if that's really what you're eager for, they are available in the community, not too far away.
Michael, I'm gonna make a comment on this one. As I mentioned earlier, we had our Halloween party last weekend at the Cos Cob Library, and we talked with many of the parents who came, and certainly encouraged them to join us tonight. But there is a comment that seems to be constant, not by everybody, but enough people that I think it's important. People do not want the Cos Cob Library to lose its character. There's a certain feel about the Cos Cob Library. There's a certain character that has been developed there. And the question was, well, are you going to really change it, or is it going to not be what it is? So I think there are lots of ideas of dividing space, and we actually went down that road a few years ago. And Laura's right. If you start putting in dividers and this and that, you completely lose the feel of the community that the Cos Cob Library is. And it really is almost the center of the community. So I think that what questions we might ask, the feedback we heard last weekend was, we want this to still be our Cos Cob Library. So it's important to keep that in mind.
To quickly add something about the bike racks, we heard that feedback from, I think, your meeting 2 weeks ago. It was discussed at the Buildings and Ground meeting, and we've heard you. So we're taking that into consideration for sure.
And I think there also was a mention of stroller parking as a major consideration as well, if I remember correctly.
So we did discuss those points, and we're looking into solutions.
And I would note that Michael Tribe's comment about the solar panels also came out of community feedback. So,
that was also mentioned at our meeting too. So we're looking into that as well. We hear you, and it's a work in process. So thank you.
Okay, so our next question, are you planning on using solar panels? And as we just said, that's being explored and looked at as an alternative for the project. So the next question is, if we have this addition built, are we will we be eligible for a state grant in the near future? The answer to that is based on the criteria that I gave at the beginning of the Q&A. The answer would be no, because of the age and status of the building being that it's too new and that other criteria. So no, it wouldn't be. The next question, will the Cos Cob Library have to be closed during the refurbishment? As we mentioned before, that's TBD depending on the phasing of the project. There might be a part where we're partially open. But in any case, if the building does close, we are planning on providing offsite services and either book pickups or a limited collection. The next question is, please elaborate a little bit on the pergola. It sounds great. So who would like to elaborate on the pergola? Maybe Michael.
Yeah, so it's very early in the design phases, but the idea is to have an outdoor room on that east side of the building with a terrace with some chairs and tables that can be moved, an area where programs for children or for adults could occur there. Potentially it's a wood structure with exterior lighting. Nothing's been designed. It's just, we've talked about the concept. We've talked a little about the capacity of how many children would be out there. That we will continue to design, you know, at the next phase, we'll design that and obviously share what comes out of the design with everybody.
All right. Okay, so the bicycle racks, we've answered that. Then there's a question about glass panels. Not quite sure what that's in reference to. So could anybody answer something about glass panels, Michael?
I suppose it's the idea of, if we're going to separate
Enclosed areas, yeah.
quiet room or something like that, could you put glass panels to create a quiet zone? I think that's the question.
Okay, and the last comment is, please no basement, we are in a flood zone. And that has to do with the prior comment about building a basement. And yes, that's true, we are in a flood zone. So I don't know if anybody wants to elaborate more on that.
I don't know if there is discussion of an outdoor storage shed. I don't, unless that has changed. But there is at least that possibility. Although there too, I understand the history has been that they're not always so watertight in past experience.
So that's the end of the Q&A. And I guess I would turn this back to Deb and Michael.
Michael, do you have any closing words that you want to?
Well, certainly on behalf of the trustees, I think we're very eager to hear feedback. That was the goal of this meeting, was to, really provide information, and getting this initial round of questions has been extremely helpful, but it's not meant to be the be all and end all. So I think you all know how to reach us. And I think, as we move forward, the next phase will be a very public one, where we're applying for, permits and all of that is, all that is Greenwich when you want to build something. And so there'll be opportunities to comment and participate. But we hope everyone shares our enthusiasm and excitement for this project. I think it is overdue and really will help bring the branch, into the current level of best in class that we strive for across the system. And again, I think as evidenced in the recent renovation at the main branch. But certainly happy to take any questions, after this evening. And I know other members of the board are as well, including a few who I should have mentioned were not able to join just because of scheduling issues, but our president, Peggy Kalb, and other committee chairs who normally would have been here this evening, but are just, had other obligations. I don't know, Deb or anyone else, if you have any other thoughts.
Couple of thoughts, and Laura and I have discussed this. If you have a meeting on a Thursday night, there are people who would love to be here, but like Peggy, etc., couldn't make it. So Laura has recorded this meeting, and what we want to be able to do is, for those people who were unable to join us, we want to make that, particularly Michael Tribe's portion, we want to make that available, and that could be another 50 people. We had 43 people, I believe, today, which is a really good turnout. But we will have this, Laura has recorded this, so we will have that available. And of course, the staff, Laura and the staff, will be certainly fielding a lot of questions and keeping all of us apprised as to what people are thinking, what they're asking, suggestions. Everybody probably has a question that we haven't gotten to tonight, so we'll keep our eyes open for that. I know the Friends are very supportive of this opportunity to increase the space in the library, to rethink the space, and we're going to be certainly listening to everyone who comes to our programs, which we're getting into holiday program time, so there'll be lots of parents, lots of kids. We will likely get a good bit of feedback and provide that to Laura and to Joe, etc. So I'm done for the night. If someone else has some final comments, I'd love to hear them.
There was just a couple of other comments in the chat. One was how to reach us. You can direct questions to Laura over at the branch, or one of the branch people for any questions. You can reach out to her, and she'll be able to get it over to the right people. And like we said, we'll make this presentation publicly available.
Laura, anything you need to add?
No, just want to let everyone know that please contact me with any questions. I'll be happy to answer them if I can, and if not, I'll direct them to the right people. And thank you all for coming today and sharing your thoughts. It's very important to us, and it's going to be very important for the planning process. So we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.